Don't even get me started on the Met Ball. It's a whole, I have a lot to say about the Met Ball.
And I want you to say it, honestly.
Like, it's one of the reasons why I left the fashion industry as a stylist and started StyleLikeU. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Elisa. Thank you so much for having me as a part of this really beautiful series.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so incredibly grateful to have you here, and thank you so much for being a part of it.
Of course. I mean, I think I really appreciate the kind of like content that you're bringing into the world. Like, I feel like it's more of what's needed for humanity.
Oh, Thank you. I mean, coming from you, that really means a lot. It really means a lot because your sincerity and your integrity at this point in your life and starting at such a young age is really quite mind-blowing to me.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I think it's so unusual at such a young age to be that way, starting at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And let alone what you've accomplished to this point. I mean, to be able at this point to call yourself an environmentalist, an animator, an author, and I'm going to add a designer.
Yep.
Is pretty awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, it is pretty unusual. And I mean, I've just always been someone who's been super passionate about art and design and expressing myself through almost every creative medium that's out there. I was just going to say visual, but just every creative medium that's out there, whether it is like animation or sustainable fashion or painting or whatever. And also sometimes all of those things overlap. And then I've also been someone who's if I feel like I can't make some sort of an impact, it doesn't resonate with me like that. And that's just kind of how I've always been, like, since I was really little.
Yeah, what are some of your memories of that? Because, I just had my hand read for the first time.
Wow.
A hand reading.
Yeah.
And I learned that things are set in terms of what you're supposed to do here, in this incarnation or however you want to see it, 5 months before you're born.
Wow.
And anyway, I'm not going to get into all the details.
No, I really
of that.
like to do that now. I'm like, I need to try that.
Because it's there already. And I do find as I get older and I look back, I recognize how much was there right from the very beginning with me. And so obviously with everybody. Like I remember my mother saying to me that my grandparents and my parents were afraid of me because even when I was in the baby carriage, they felt I could see through them.
Wow. That's so wild. And like, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, let me say this, like a big reason why I am also the way I am is because I've always really had an understanding of whether you want to call it the universe or whether you want to call it God. There is like a very spiritual element to activism and like into environmentalism. And because of course, everything is very much rooted in the science and scientific communities. But the thing is that because we're up against all of these other like extremely overwhelming problems that people around the world are facing or very terrified about, you have to have some sort of an energetic, spiritually uplifting element, whatever that means. That can just mean, the arts. That can mean bringing faith communities into this work. That can mean, making sure that, indigenous wisdom is centered in this work. So it's crucial. Like, it's definitely like the hopelessness and the morale kind of definitely can drop a lot because it feels so overwhelming and all encompassing. And, we're all humans at the end of the day. We're all spiritual beings having a, earthly experience, however you want to describe it. And you have to have that motivation to continue in that faith and belief that we can collectively make an impact in the world.
I couldn't agree with you more. I feel that it's not possible really to be born out of this universe that is so unfathomable and ordered. Like Pluto doesn't fall out of the universe. I mean, if Pluto fell out, we wouldn't be here. Like everything would fall apart. So, we're completely connected, and that makes me feel like, okay, well, we're absolutely here for a reason, and the reason couldn't possibly be to be not your biggest self and not using all of your gifts and all of the things that you've been given like that to hide. So let's hear about, tell me about your style and what it says about you. And
I don't know if this is just a personality thing or Aquarius thing or whatever thing, but I'm very grateful that I've never had like this fear of missing out on trends or anything like that. I love an outfit that either has a story to it or has some sort of like, I can tell you, oh, I got this from this, sustainable label or the small business that I was at this market and they had these really cool like items I got. And I also love to make a lot of my own stuff because I'm an artist and I love to DIY and repurpose something, because that's how I started my sustainable fashion line. So I'm trying to figure out, in a nutshell, like artsy, eclectic, earthy, something that just I'm proud to talk about. Like my outfit, it's not just, oh, it's cute, but it's also like, by the way, these, earrings I got when I was in Kenya when I was 16 years old from this, whatever. Like I like
let's hear.
These are actually two different pairs of earrings. So
I love that.
All talking to each other. I like to do that.
That's
a lot.
amazing.
So this was this I got when I was 16. These are actually both from Kenya. These I got more recently. And then all of my jewelry is just from various like small like businesses from around the world. Sometimes or across the country. Sometimes it's just like as simple as there's this really cool Etsy shop that I love, and then I support them however I can, or I'm out of town and I, might check out like some sort of like a craft or like small business market. And, I think it's important for us to have a relationship with our clothes that's not just, consumerist only.
Disposable.
That's the magic.
Ooh, I could talk about this forever. I mean, this is...
Please.
I mean, first of all, I wear lots of earrings in one haul, too.
Those are so
This has
cool.
been a mood for a few years, and I just wear the same thing every day, or variations of like lost ones, or... So I'm so attached that way. And when being confronted with the fires and for a short period of time, because I'm very fortunate to not be in one of the riskier places, but there were a couple of days where I wasn't sure. And when confronted with what I would do with everything that's in my house, I was really thinking, whoa, I mean, obviously my 3 rescue dogs, my husband, the box of photos of my kids, but then it would be my clothes. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because everything I have, I wear all the time. I've been wearing for 30, 40 years. Yeah. Like nothing that I have is disposable. Nothing.
I love that.
Yeah.
And people don't even know that's having a disposable relationship with your clothes is weird. It's a very recent invention for clothes to be disposable. Clothes used to be an investment, and they used to be made at a quality where you could wear them for years and years and years, and pass them down to your kids, and then they could wear it for years and years. Like, it's not normal that you buy a shirt and then it disintegrates after you look at it too hard. Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, the average piece of fast fashion clothing, I believe, is supposed to hold up about 10 or so wears before it just starts pretty much disintegrating.
Wow.
And
I don't have any of
normal.
it, so I have no idea. I've never bought it ever in my whole life.
And I appreciate you for that, because here's the thing. I really try to figure out also how to get to people who are also quote unquote not fashion people, because it's like, if you live on this planet and if you wear clothes, then sustainable fashion matters to you. Okay, it should matter to you. People think of fashion as like this very frivolous thing, and it's not. I mean, it's there's a whole lifespan that every piece of clothing has, from its creation to like where it ends up after you don't have it anymore. And that will inevitably happen. It doesn't have to be, oh, you threw it away. And a lot of people throw clothes away, which I was like, oh my gosh, why? But it also, you're kind of forced to, if stuff is such a bad quality, it's basically unwearable and it might not even be upcyclable properly. So I'm saying all of that to say that what's in, what's out, these trends, this core, that core, a lot of that, unfortunately, is propaganda. And I get when people have like, I'm wondering what's going through your mind right now.
I'm going to tell you when you're done.
Okay. A lot of people, I actually totally get when people are in certain niches or are trying out a certain look. No one is saying not to experiment, to express yourself, to not try something because someone else tried it. I'm not saying that. That's literally just normal human behavior. And I totally get also, too, from a economic standpoint that there's, only so much that you can do. And I mean, a lot of people feel you have to have a proximity to affluence in order to make a change in this way as a consumer. And, sometimes it is as simple as, if you have time, learn to mend and repair your clothes, or learning to wash and spot treat your clothes instead of, if you might not have to completely throw them in the wash if you just got a really small, tiny stain in them, for example, that would save water. I don't know. It's like really small things.
Or don't care. Like, I mean, for me, I don't care if my things are filled with holes or stains. Like I'm wearing a Victorian dress right now, a nightgown.
Oh,
it was someone's nightgown.
When we have to see the full, I love your chair.
It was someone's.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, you just see the tights.
Oh, I have lace tights on, but they're also ripping. They're ripping, and I'm not. I don't care. I don't care if they rip. I'm not. When it rips, I'm like, okay, that's good. And I think it's true of life. It's like this idea of perfection. Yeah, that everything has to have this kind of antiseptic, this kind of surface perfection, and that the beauty isn't in the wear and the tear. It's to say I can connect it to a fear of aging. Like it's the same.
Yeah.
It's all connected. The beauty is in the mistakes and the wrong turns and the messiness and the rips and the tears, the tears in my dress. Then you have an idea, and then it becomes more you.
Yeah.
Then you are not mistaken ever for someone else, because why would you want to be mistaken for someone else? Because you're so unique.
Yes, exactly. I do also see that, like you said, with like the fear of aging and like the fear of, it is a perfection thing as well. And this is what I was talking about, your clothes having a life. Most people don't think about the things that they own having a life outside of when they're utilizing them, right? And, something fraying, something getting a hole, getting a tear, getting a stain, like it kind of breaks that illusion of like, oh, wait, this is something that can like age, that can get damaged, that can, like anything, it literally on earth, anything that's alive or not. And, it is like kind of chasing this completely impossible thing. Perfection is not real. Like there's no such thing as perfection, like genuinely. And that's not even a, a motivational thing. Like this literally is a myth. And I think it's important for people to really be okay with defining like their own kind of relationship with what they wear and why. And I mean, fashion is also political. Fashion is, is cultural. And that's why X core and Y core and whatever.
I'm going to get to that.
Because the thing that kind of sucks is everything is just completely about looks and not about what I'm even really saying with what I'm wearing. Not that you have to say anything. Sometimes you accidentally, even trying not to, even approaching things from a surface level still says something.
Yeah, I think we're always saying something. I think that I'm just coming to this now. Punk is not wearing a black leather jacket.
Punk is a mindset, and punk is action. What's so funny? I feel like we telepathically communicated, because everything that when you were explaining, your outfit and, you're okay with the holes and the tears, I'm like, this is what punk is about. But I was like, is that a completely random side quest conversation? Punk is not
it's a
not
black leather jacket.
It's
literally
counterculturalism. Like
exactly.
Whatever.
Like it's not. I think about every single store every single season, black leather jackets. Every single person has a black leather, the same black leather that's made where? Who made that? How many excesses of that is there out there? How many of them are the same? How many of you look the same? Because
Right.
you think that if you buy that jacket and wear that jacket, that you are a punk. And because we've been told and brainwashed, to believe that. And
it starts in your mind. It starts in your mind, like, and then it radiates out. You have to be okay with just doing whatever the hell you want. I don't know.
And what you feel is you. What is you? And like, how do you, what is you?
The last thing I will also say about this is I think people also, the biggest fear is social, ostracization and, being excluded or and that's fair, especially if you're like maybe a teenager in high school. Like it feels like life or death to be, and I sure. But the thing that I will say, the thing about being yourself and expressing yourself from inward, like who you are and through you attract your people, like your actual people, not the people who, they'll treat you nice because you're conforming. And then, they might find out this one thing about you that's kind of different. And then they get weird. Like, you can avoid that by just being you.
And so I'm wondering, what has it been like for you to be the kid that was not like all the other kids?
Yeah. I mean, the thing for me is this has been like a super like lonely journey, especially starting out. People just kind of get turned off from people who actually care about stuff and want to dedicate, a part of their life to doing something about it. Because here's the thing, I started at 8 years old, but I started in 2008 as an environmental activist. And the reason why I give the exact year is because I started like pre-climate strike, the kind of wave that you see now. I was doing that before that wave. But on top of that, I also was grew up extremely nerdy, artsy kid, all of the things that just make you not really have friends growing up. It's hard to explain to people. I have to go speak at this UN thing. Like, that's not relatable to most people in general, let alone if you're like a child or a teenager. So it was almost like a Hannah Montana kind of thing happening a little bit.
How did that feel? What would that be like?
I mean, it was hard because, I did feel kind of like weird, but not to the point where I was ashamed of what I was doing, because collaborating with so many incredible people, doing so many amazing projects to help people and planet and animals, and it means the world to me. And it's this, I would never change like getting started at this age, because my view of the world is so rich and so expansive, because I've been introduced to just how incredible human beings can actually be when they work together and when they recognize that everybody is interconnected. It's very rare to be in situations like that. And that has really shaped who I am as a person. But, especially when I was younger, like, it would be hard to really engage or make friends because stuff would be unrelatable or weird to people. And then they would just kind of be like, okay. Eventually, that has sort of gone away, because I think, one, a lot of these issues are now more widely talked about, which is great, even though it's under circumstances of issues also getting worse. And then also, now that I'm in my, early 20s, more people my age are kind of pursuing this, kind of pursuing life in the same way that I kind of was early on. Like, my professional developed before a lot of my personal, if that makes sense. And so I'm more comfortable, like, speaking to like a crowd of, maybe a few hundred people than
a TED Talk.
Having a one-on-one, like a TED Talk. Like, I've done 3 TED Talks, right?
I couldn't do one. I couldn't do one now. I can't believe you've done 3. I need to. Well, I
Me
need to.
too.
But I was going to ask you about that confidence. And like, that's incredible that you developed that at such a young age. It's amazing.
Thank you. I mean, it's so funny because I still get nervous. It's like I think I'm so passionate that it overrides anything. It's like I know what's on the line, and I know what good can come out of me speaking out in such a large way, in such a large platform, and how it can really drive and engage and motivate people to get involved in this mission. And I think that overrides the fear and it becomes bigger than myself. It's not like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be looking at me and judging me. I'm not worried about me, even though I am. And I get nervous and I like get, a little bit shaky, and like all great speakers and all great, people do get nervous. If you don't get nervous, I think that means you don't care. And that's not a good thing,
Right. And it's okay to be nervous and have fear. That's all right.
Yes.
That's how you grow, to be uncomfortable. You need to be uncomfortable to grow.
You have to be. And I'm really grateful that my parents, one, when their 8-year-old daughter came up to them and was like, I want to be, environmental activist. I want to start a sustainable fashion line. I want to be an animator and all these things. They were not weirded out either. And instead we're not only supportive, but have always been there to check on me, because I'm like the person who's like super go. And, will still be like, yeah, hey, Maya, like, are you doing okay? They're like, how are you though? And like,
wow,
you want to, are you okay with doing, these back-to-back, conferences? And then you have to, so I'm grateful that I have that balance of, they believe in me and they also care about me and my well-being, and try to make sure that I don't accidentally like push myself because I'm so passionate about all of this. Because I do want to just I know this is a bit of a tangent, but I do want to say that I feel like youth activists in general and youth climate activists especially kind of tend to get like dehumanized in like two different ways. The first way just being like, if people disagree with them, just the thing of, oh my gosh, they're just mindless and they just have this agenda, and they don't know anything because they're so young. Like, why would these kids care about these things? And like, I've seen all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the other side is for people who do support them. Sometimes it's a thing of, oh my gosh, you are amazing. You're the future. Go fix it. We believe in you. Bye. It's like, no, like they both are not great. And especially as a Black woman, and as a Black girl, like, misogynoir has also made a lot of people, I think, adultify me and dehumanize me and think of, oh my gosh, you are just this superwoman, and we just, you can do anything, and we can have you do all of these things last minute that are kind of super insane and exhausting, and it's fine. No, I have all this passion and this strength and this power, yes, but I still have to have my own autonomy to be like, I'm gonna like step back for a bit, and it shouldn't be weird or confusing to people. So that was a big rant, but
not at all.
important.
I really appreciate you sharing that, and it's very vulnerable. What I see is that you were given so much support and nurturing, and your parents are amazing, and really everybody needs to be understanding that all of it really starts there. The whole thing of like, be able to be a kid. Well, you were able to be a kid. You did exactly what you wanted. And that was, look what came out of that. But then you end up with assumptions and people not seeing you as a real person and not meeting your needs
exactly
on the outside. And that's an interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting
And it doesn't
thing
really
to look
get
at.
talked about because I think people don't really want to humanize activists, because then a lot of their preconceptions, even about whatever it is they're out marching for or fighting for, like, will get completely turned on its head. Because another thing I see a lot is like a lot of people treat climate activists like they're just kind of doing it just because, sort of, or everybody who's out there is just super privileged. And I mean, most of the people, like when I'm a part of marches or when I'm like doing community organizing, these are people who they have this, chemical plant being built in their backyard. Their neighborhood is literally considered a sacrifice zone, right? You've ever heard of the Louisiana Cancer Alley? Because the rates of cancer are just so high from all of the chemicals. A lot of it is just literally people who are just have been touched by this issue and are fed up. And sometimes climate change doesn't feel like a quote unquote, like a everyday issue, but it's one of those things that kind of touches everything. And I don't think we fully can even comprehend how. Like, it's the multiplier for everything we care about as human beings. So I think it's really one of my biggest goals is to just humanize environmentalists and climate solutionists and just explain the why. I think people feel like it's weird to have to care, to not be self-centered and to care about people who are different from you, to care about non-human species of plants and animals and ecosystems. And, it's the interconnectedness that is a very, very big part of like what environmentalism really is. Like whatever you think it is, the biggest thing is just understanding how interconnected we all are. And a lot of times people are just not given the tools or the language, but they just know something is wrong. The rates of, someone could say like the rates of asthma in my community are so high, for example, like when COVID first hit, that exemplified a lot of public health disparities with air pollution, because the communities that were being impacted the hardest were the ones that had, the worst air quality and had high rates of asthma and other respiratory conditions. And then so when now you have, this global pandemic that's happening, then what do you think? Like all of this is...
They're the most vulnerable.
Yeah, so all of this stuff is super interconnected.
Yeah, we're one living, breathing organism.
Correct.
And if the pandemic didn't show us that well enough, then we're in for a lot more, and it's going to take a lot more. What is something that you felt shame around, or was there something that then when you embraced it, it became power?
For some reason, to me, the word shame is like, I don't feel like I have a lot of shame in my life, which I know everyone in the world does, but I feel like everything that has made me different in some way has then translated into being what made my voice stand out. And it's almost less shame and more just sleeping on it, where it's like, I'm more like, I don't know if people would get this part about me or whatever, but it's not, I don't know what to really do with it, because people contain multitudes and people are so multifaceted. I would say for me, in that respect, a lot of people try to make me very ashamed of my natural hair. I will say that is a very big part of me and my identity. I have never worn my hair, straightened out or anything. I've always had my hair like completely natural, but I would definitely get a lot of negative comments from...
Like what?
From grown people and from people my age, right? So it could be something as simple as, I remember like this kid in my neighborhood told me like, what's wrong with your hair? And like when you're like, 10 or so, you're like, damn, is there something wrong with my hair? Like it's a question that now exists in your mind, which sucks. But then there's, like I said, grown people. I've had a lot of grown adults put racial slurs in my email and do all sorts of really intense things that, I don't think you fully expect, but that is the reality, right? But I've heard a lot about like, my hair looks terrible, it's unprofessional, I need to get a perm, I need to whatever, I've heard a lot of this. And through all of that, I will credit my mom, because she is the person who really made sure to instill in me that my natural texture of my hair was beautiful. Actually, one of my earliest books that I remember reading was Happy to Be Nappy by Bell Hooks. And it's like, I was just always really like surrounded by that, it doesn't matter that this is not what other people are doing. Like, this is beautiful and here is why. Like, I had enough ammunition to combat, you know, in my heart, like whenever I would feel like singled out and I can't even, if I had $1 for every person that just randomly came up and touched my hair growing up, I would be,
Wow.
oh my God, I wouldn't have to ever like work again. I really wouldn't. I really
Wow.
wouldn't. Like, you just feel so othered. Like, you know, you feel like you feel totally like dehumanized, like in those kinds of situations. So then in turn, as I started getting older and I started getting opportunities, for example, I attended the 2023 Met Gala because I had been working with Coach on their circular fashion design lab / sub-brand called Coachtopia. But the reason I mention that is because it was very important to me to wear my natural hair for this event, because this is like what a lot of people will say is like the pinnacle when it comes to fashion and style and glamour and luxury. And it was really important for me, you know, to advocate, to say, like, I want to wear my hair, you know, my natural texture, and that I do want to send a message with that. One, I just want to very briefly talk about the dress, because the dress that I wore was made completely from recycled, like, chiffon from past runway shows, from trash from the Met Museum. So literally like ticket stubs, street vendor napkins, maps, whatever. Every time I tell this to people, they're like, what? Like, really? Like, because it doesn't look like how you might think. It looks like gorgeous and luxurious and all. And I'm like, this is what circular fashion can actually look like, right? So I wanted to use this big pop culture moment to educate people and change people's perspective on what sustainable fashion actually is, because people think you have to like sacrifice style.
They think it's like dowdy and ugly.
Exactly.
Don't even get me started on the Met Ball. It's a whole. I have a lot to say about the Met Ball.
And I want you to say it, honestly.
No, I like, it's one of the reasons why I left the fashion industry as a stylist and started StyleLikeU. I mean, it's the symbol, the metaphor.
Yes.
Of capitalism on steroids, of manipulation, of control, of selling, of this idea that everyone needs to spend all of their money to be part of this club, to be like these people, and you're nothing and you're worthless unless you do. Yeah. Like selling some luxury designer and wearing diamonds and like thinking that you're some creative style genius because someone has paid you tons of money to wear something. But anyway.
Correct.
And I get why you went, and I get why it was important and the statement that you made. But I think that in a way I was struggling to ask this question to you about what's the thing that you didn't love about yourself or until you embraced it. It doesn't even apply to you, which is so interesting because you're really an example of how it could be, how it should be. So when you are told at birth to be whoever you want to be, and then what comes out of that? You're that example. You are actually the living example of that. So here you go.
That's my thing. I feel like my power is being a disruptor, because my nature is being a disruptor. Even when I try my hardest to not be that, like when I've ever tried my hardest to, like, I guess whatever be normal is, there's no such thing as normal, but be normal or to be whatever. It's like I just could not disrupt, because that's just like who I am as a person. And that is what my power is. And even as yes to everything that you said about the Met Gala, and that is specifically why I went and used every media opportunity to talk about, here is what how the fashion industry is actually killing our planet, and here's just an example of how we do not have to do that. And it freaked people out. A lot of people, like, you know, like a lot of, and that was my intention. I wanted to come through and like do something other than whatever, you know, everything that you just described, where it's just like, what is actually the point? You know, I don't even think culturally the needle gets moved forward anymore by this kind of stuff.
Oh my God, you're duping everyone to believing that this is you enter this club in this world, and you're made for life. And then everyone is, and the rest of us are, the whole world's on a treadmill to get there, and there's no there to
Exactly.
get. Yeah.
I think if I had to say like a thing I ever sometimes try to hide, is just the fact that I am a disruptive force as a person. And I can't do anything about that because that's just who I am. Like, there will always be a moment where I'm going to have to speak up about this thing, or, I'm going to want to do it my way. I cannot.
You cannot not. It's the same with me. Yeah. The hand guy said to me, you can never live a normal life.
Yeah, correct. And that was the thing. I think that was actually the biggest thing is I had to accept. And I think that was where a lot of my struggle would come from, especially as like a teenager. Because, when you're a teenager, like being normal, if you're not normal, like the world is over for some reason. I don't know why that happens to everybody for like at least 5 seconds. But, I think that the people who really in my life, my family and my friends who, did care about me and supported me and loved me for who I am, I think they kind of just all knew that before I really did. Like, I felt like there could be sometimes maybe, here's the off switch to where I can just be a normal person. And that was a whole lie. Like, I made up in my mind, and so embracing that will never be the case. And that's fine. And that's what makes my life so much more rich and have depth and amazing, experiences and people and just everything that I never would have if I didn't, and leaning into that. I've leaned into that fully now as a young adult. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing is understanding, okay, this is just who I am. It's kind of like you're trying to tell, I don't know what. It's like you're trying to talk to like a force of nature, to like, the wind or like the river. Like don't run that way. Like you can't. Like, you just can't do anything about it. Don't blow through those trees, And
that's such a great, powerful message to everybody. Going back to the beginning of the conversation, that everyone has the ability to be a force of nature, and I just think they're not given the nurturing to do that, or there's not the confidence to do that, but you really can be. You really, I just love that so much, because we are that. We are the river, and we are the tree, and we are it. We come from the same place.
And humans are nature, by the way. The idea that we're separate from nature is a complete and total myth. And that has nothing to do with where you live. You can be in a rural area, you can be in an urban environment, you can be whatever. Like, we literally are walking, breathing nature, and we're part of the natural world. And that's why we have to care about what happens to the natural world. The word of the day is anthropocentrism, that like everything revolves around human beings. And, everybody, including myself, talk a lot about saving the earth and saving Mother Nature. But the thing is, she will be fine. This is about saving life on earth and preserving life on earth. She doesn't need us, but we need her. Right?
We'll become extinct. It will go, the earth will regenerate itself.
The earth is so resilient, and it's been through so much since, like, our existence as humans, and like what we're doing is just like, it's literally like if a ladybug started crawling on you right now. And yes, absolutely, I think the earth is hurting, and what is happening is extremely disrespectful, extractive, abusive, violent. Like the violence towards the natural world. And, we're in a mass extinction event right now. People don't even know that, because most of the extinction is happening to plants and animals and species that we will then see the systemic collapse affect us as humans. And also most of the frontline communities are, poor people, Black, brown, and indigenous communities in the global north and communities in the global south who have been experiencing this for much longer. The earth will heal and regenerate. This is about like saving us and saving what's around us. And I think that's also what grounds it for people about this is like a human rights thing. It's just a nature conservation thing. It's all of that. So if we want to continue to have an earth to pass down to the next generation that is breathable, livable, the water is drinkable, we have to do something. everybody.
We have to unify. Do you have hope?
I do have hope. And you know what's so funny? I've actually been writing about this a lot, about the concept of hope, because it's super complicated. I think when I'm thinking about hope in this way, I'm more so thinking about motivation, because everyone who's doing something right now, even if they're in despair as they're doing the thing, they still have a bit of hope, because why would you even attempt? You have to somewhere deep down have a little bit of hope that your action that you're doing will make some sort of a tangible impact. Otherwise, nobody would be here doing any of this work, right? And I think that like the nature of hope is super misunderstood sometimes. It's a lot more complicated and not always clear cut. So my biggest focus is like, you have to create the right conditions for it. Start with your community and get involved with like a local organization, for example, planting a community garden or something. Like something that's tangible that you can see and feel and look at that you did it. Like thought leadership can only go so far to make you feel hopeful. You have to see with your own eyes and feel it with your own hands. And when I'm doing that, like when I have this drive just outside of this urgency and this fear, I can see the tangible result of what I'm doing. And that's why I'm very focused on grassroots work. I think that's when I'm the most hopeful in those moments, because like I can see what's happening right in front of me. And not everyone can say that, but I think people can get to that point if they just get engaged. And again, like I said, I feel like it is the goal of oppressive systems to make us feel hopeless, to make us feel disempowered, to make us be completely distrusting of one another, to make us feel like, this is the end, oh my God, we're cooked, it's over, like, whatever, like however you want to say that. And like all of that is still propaganda. Yes, people have feelings. I have feelings. I have a cry. I have a, like, damn, this is so crazy moment all the time. But then I'm like, okay, but this is exactly what they want. So I'm not going to give anybody this. I'm not going to give, the satisfaction that, oh, you've broken my spirit. It's over. Like, it's not even a thing of, having hope just to have hope, because like sometimes it's a resilience tool, like optimism and joy and all our resilience tools. It doesn't mean that you're, neglectful to what's happening around you or disengaged. It's literally a resilience tool that has helped so many, marginalized and persecuted people survive for thousands of years, So you have to lean into that wherever you can. And, it can feel pretty much impossible sometimes, but there are a lot of moments where it can't be possible. And I think when you think about it from that way, sometimes like it might sound so weird. A lot of my emotions feed my other emotions. Like a lot of times I have hope out of spite, It's like, it makes no sense, but it makes sense in my heart. So maybe that's, I said all of that just to say that sometimes I just have hope out of spite.
That hope is something that, I don't know, is hope connected? Is it love? Is it an act of self-love?
Yes.
I don't know.
It is act. You know what? You just nailed it. It is an act of love, actually. And, I'm going to reference, one of my greatest mentors has been V, formerly known as Eve Ensler, who you may know from like the Vagina Monologues and all of her amazing work as an activist. Something that I really love that V has said that I will always attribute to her is that when it comes to climate and environmental issues, we're very, very solutions focused, and that's great. But we also need to be connections focused, because when you actually care about Mother Earth, when you actually care about nature and the natural world, and she feels like, you're a part of her, like she's family. It's almost like the analogy that she gives is like if you have like a baby, and like you would want to feed and clothe, the baby as best as you could, and you go out of your way to make sure that they would have everything they need to be safe and be healthy and be happy. And it's just like, it's not a question of like, why would you care about this baby? Why would you, you don't ask that question. It's innate, like, because I love them and I care about them and I want them to be healthy and safe and happy. And the same kind of connection can be fostered with the earth and with other people. And we're very much discouraged from doing that. People throw around the word "who cares" or the words "who cares" constantly. And I think it's extremely important and very brave to care. And it's necessary. This is who we are as human beings. If you suppress that, I feel like you're only really hurting yourself in the long run. And you're suppressing a part of who you are. It's not a weakness to give a fuck about things. Like, that's such an annoying narrative. It's such an annoying...
That is such a beautiful thing. It is so true. And my last question to you is, what would you say to your younger self? Like, is there something lost? Is there something you're looking to gain? Is there something what would you say to her?
Well, I think what I would say to my younger self, which kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, I would say, accept that you are a disruptor and that is what your power is, and that is what will make your life so much fuller. Okay. So don't try to fight against that, because it's pointless, but two, it won't make your life better. It will actually make your life better to lean into it fully. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, don't forget to just keep reinventing your work in the space the way that you want to. Like, even if it's something that's different or odd or a niche, like that people aren't really pursuing, that's fine. Don't worry about it, because I'm a multi-hyphenate, right? So much of my work is finding overlaps in all the things that I care about. And that can lead to like really hyper specific kind of niches that, there's not really a quote unquote market for in that way, or might not be at that time. And that's actually okay. Do it anyway, and the rest will sort of follow. And I think that's what I'm doing a lot more now. I'm able to re-identify, what are like the weird projects or ideas or stuff that I was like, oh, I don't even know. Like, that doesn't even make any sense, even though I'm drawn to it. It's like, is this too specific? Is this too random? Nobody's talking about this thing. Like, and I don't fall into that very often, but, I feel like there's a monotony sometimes that can even come with environmentalism. That might sound weird, but like, it can happen, right? So I'm even still reinventing the way that I show up as an environmentalist and what that actually means and what solutions I'm building and what projects that I'm leading, because I think there's a lot of stagnation, honestly, in the space right now. So I'm focusing very hard on reaching people who have zero to even do with environmentalism. I think there's a lot of preaching to the choir that kind of happens. And that's where it kind of gets the most, like, again, stagnant. And we need like everybody's ideas engaged, even just, ordinary people, and have a very huge impact. So I'm very focused on like, reaching beyond kind of my current bubble a bit more, because it just becomes a bubble. I think especially now as more money and eyeballs have gone into it, it's kind of, I don't know. I just want to just shake things up a little bit more. That's basically, I think I'm just learning the same lesson in two different ways, but that's okay, because I'm on it. I'm on the path now, and I'm excited for what can come out of it, because, you kind of just have to take the chance. You have to take the risk. Like, a lot of people will just not get the vision, and that's actually okay. That's not a sign that something is, not the right move. If you see the vision, like, clearly, and you're drawn to it, and you think about it like every night, and you think about it every day, and you then just do it.
I mean, that's how you've lived your life up until now. And now you're taking another step and another risk of doing exactly what you said earlier, which is the only way, which is your dreams are not an accident. Your visions are not an accident.
Yep.
Your purpose is not an accident. And
No.
it doesn't mean that you continue the same thing. It doesn't mean that you do things because other people want you to be there and need you to be there. You do things because you feel it from here. And you have to have the guts, and you have to, to listen.
Yes, you do. And you have to trust yourself. And you also have to be okay with people do things only so when they think they will not fail. And that's just not how anything, it's not how anything works, one. And two, there's really not such a thing as failure in that sense. Like, you either just, things don't go the way you expected, and there's something that you can take from that and then transfer into your next project or endeavor or hope. You have to be able to be very good at, falling, getting back up, and then what did I learn from the fall? And then, then I'll translate that into the next thing. It's like all of it is progress forward, kind of like what you were saying, and you also have to lean into being very adaptable and flexible to just, like, my whole life has been completely just curveballs and stuff I just never expected. Because when I started doing this, I didn't think I was going to give 3 TED Talks. I didn't think I was going to speak around the world and have, books that are used as curriculum in school. I just I know that this is happening to our planet, and especially this fashion thing, people, even eco-conscious people, didn't really consider what was in their wardrobe being a factor. So, I'm very, very grateful to my 8-year-old self for taking the leap that she did. Because, when you're that age, you don't have all those filters and doubts and all of those barriers put in your mind. You're just like, let me just try. Let me just give it a shot. And then that sent me, snowballed into where I am now. And I have to keep, my inner child is my most important advisor in life, right? Like, that's something that's so important, because she had the secret sauce. She knew I'm going to just take this jump and just see what happens. And I have to keep doing that. And whenever I feel unsure, I just look back to my younger self. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just take the jump and see what happens. And then it always works out, because I always do it from a place of trying to change things and make some sort of a positive impact. And I think that's why. Well,
I think it's a perfect place to end. And I think basically what you're saying is follow your intuition.
Yes. Oh my gosh, please.
That 8-year-old girl knew, and we have to always go back to that. We have to always go back to that's the power. And that's the lightning in the bottle, and that's the guidance.
And this has just been so amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much. It was really, really amazing for me too. I loved every minute.